setup today, you are on my bookshelf because I've realized that nowhere else I have so many photos in my room that I can't show. So like it's like half my room is just completely off limits. But today I wanted to talk about two books and kind of be saying essentially if you like this, you might like this, and just talking about them and kind of comparing them and discussing them. And I'm going to be over here for most of the video because I'm trying to learn how to edit things, and I want to insert a picture of the book cover of the book I don't have physically. And that is one of my all-time favorite books, Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined. But this is one of my all-time favorite books. I read it last year for in Canadian literature. But this was one of the books I read independently, and then I referred it to some of my friends and they loved it as well. And this book was definitely a book that found me like exactly at the right time, and I love it to bits. The author's name is Danielle Young Ullman. But this follows Ingrid on a wilderness retreat for troubled teens or teens with immense amounts of trauma. And then in a different timeline, it follows basically her entire childhood with her mother. Now, this book made me cry. There's a fair number of books that made me cry, but this one was definitely like a huge tearjerker. And just, it's so beautifully written, and I think you can even tell that from the title. Like, that feeling you get from that title carries all the way through. And it's just such a good book. But basically on this wilderness retreat, Ingrid kind of, learns things about herself and like learns things about her past and readjusts her vision. And then through her storyline with her mother, you see her deal with a lot of the traumatic things that are going to lead her to go on this wilderness retreat. So I love this book. It's a 5-star for me. It's so near and dear to my heart. And honestly, it really helped me through some stuff. And it's so beautiful. And I'm not the only one. It has a 4.2 on Goodreads, which is like amazing for Goodreads. So I wanted to talk about a book I just finished last night, and how these books are kind of similar, but they're opposites as well. And that is How It Feels to Float by Helena Fox. This book, I loved like the first 150 pages, and I really liked the rest. So I ended up giving it 4 stars, but I would say it's like a 4.5 because it's at the top of my 4 section on my bookshelf. It's just before my 5 stars. And I'm comparing it to Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined, but the way this is written, I've never read a book like that, and that was really interesting to read. I had a lot of stuff going on in my life that may have dampened my experience of this book over the past 4 days when I've been reading it. But other than that, I think it's really well written. I think it has a lot of, not so much tropes, but like things you see in some YA novels that is done really differently. And in the sections, it's quite it's a really just interesting work to read, in my opinion. But basically this follows Elizabeth, or Biz, and her struggles with mental health. In both of these books, they are both really mental health heavy. They're both really they're two characters working through an immense amount of trauma and confronting new traumatic things. So both of these books have like major trigger warnings for like sexual assault, suicide, mental illness, suicidal thoughts, strained parental relationships, parents leaving, all this sorts of things. Bullying in both. You can probably find a more in-depth one on Goodreads. Honestly, it's been a year since I read Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined, and it's been such a cluster the past few days. There's definitely more in here. But this follows Biz when she's 16 and 17, and her father passed away when she was 7. And it follows her, at the start it seems like just normal high school, a little bit of anxiety, and then there's an event. That's how books work. And it kind of sends her down this path of worsening mental health and isolation. And she finds 2 people in particular to kind of pull her through, but you see in the book that, you know, just finding your people isn't always enough. Sometimes you need to confront yourself. And I thought that that was a really good message, and one I could really relate to. And then it's told in 4 parts. So I wanted to talk about where these books meet. They both have characters who find their people, they find their community, with Ingrid's in Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined being much larger than Biz's, but nonetheless they both find their community. And we both, I would say there's some unreliable narrating in this, but especially towards the end, but there's a lot that's hidden. Like, the twists are really the events that have set the characters down these paths that you don't find out until later, and you can like guess throughout the entire book, and you know, and then when it's revealed, it's kind of heartbreaking, earth-shattering, especially in Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined. That was, I can still feel how I felt when I read that. So that's where they're similar. They both deal with like mental health. Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined deals more so with mental health struggles of a parent and then how that affects your life, where How It Feels to Float deals obviously with mental health struggles of a parent, but also how, you know, it kind of talks about how predisposition to mental health issues and the community around you without saying that. And not to get into it, but as someone who's kind of had that in their life, I feel like it was, you know, it's not really one of those things that has to be spelled out. Like, I think it was just really well discussed in this book. And then also like mental health issues that you confront yourself more so than just confronting trauma. They also have adventures. Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined kind of made me fall in love with camp stories and stuff, and I have yet to find a book like it that I can sink my teeth into, because a lot of them are like fluffy romances or like horror and everyone's dying. So I so badly want another book that's like this, and I'm still on the hunt. It's been a year. I will find one. So Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined is like an adventure story through and through. How It Feels to Float is really more of an adventure story in the 3rd part of the book, which is the 2nd shortest part of the book. But they both have that adventure and travel element in them. Their settings are very different, yet somehow intertwined. Biz is in Australia and she's on the coast by the ocean, but also she travels to the outback. And then Ingrid is based in Ontario, in the city, and then goes to Northern Ontario in Canada. So complete different sides of the world, which I think is really interesting, that you can find stories that kind of interlock ideas in such different circumstances. Anyway, that's just something I find really interesting. Yeah, so they both deal with like trauma, they both deal with mental health stuff, they both deal with like travel, wilderness, trying to find yourself. And I think if you may have found the writing style of How It Feels to Float too chaotic, or you may have found How It Feels to Float too much, like really diving into mental health stuff, like with your main character and not just her dad. As Everything Beautiful Is Not Ruined is like very, not normally, but like written like your typical paragraph, reliable, very lyrical way of writing. So I think if you found the writing too chaotic, Everything Beautiful is Not Ruined, you don't also see, you see a lot of mental health that's other than your main character. And then the main character deals with their stuff and their trauma from that. It's not as severe and in-depthly explored as Biz as a character is in How It Feels to Float. So yeah, I just really I loved both of these books. Everything Beautiful is Not Ruined I liked a little more, and I think part of that was the fact that I understood where the character was, also going through, you know, it was something that found me at the right time in my life. And I think this is too, to a degree. And I just had it kind of kept the same kind of momentum, same kind of thing going as it did in like the first half or first 2/3 of this book. I don't think it would have been saying the things it said. So I understand why that changed, and I understand why, as we follow Biz kind of really struggling with her mental health, why things get jumbled almost. So yeah, if you liked How It Feels to Float, you'll probably like Everything Beautiful is Not Ruined. And if you liked Everything Beautiful is Not Ruined and you maybe want something that's even more hard-hitting, How It Feels to Float is a book you'd like. So that's all I have to say today. Bye.